And many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Authorities in Burkina Faso declared 32 people wanted for terrorism-related offenses. Leader of Ivorian opposition, Tijan Cham, urges President Ouattara to guarantee an inclusive election. Nigerian embattled Senator Natasha holds homecoming rally amidst a ban on political programs.
On the 14th of March at 10:30 p.m., mind you, 2 days before that, which was on the 12th, Akpabio had called Governor Dodo on the phone that he should commence my recall.
In Liberia, CSO calls for urgent revision of 1986 Constitution to strengthen democracy and governance.
The Liberian Constitution must reflect modern democratic standards and provide a stronger legal foundation for justice, accountability, and inclusive governance.
Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Imo Edit with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. Let's begin in Burkina Faso, where the authorities have declared 32 people wanted for terrorism-related offenses. According to the Minister of Security, these individuals are actively sought for criminal associations in connection with a terrorist enterprise. Abdullah Hassan brings us the details in this report.
Several well-known figures are on this list. They include journalist and former president of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Ahmed Newton-Bari, former MP for Maride Dori, Aziz Jallo, and journalist Abdoulaye Jallo. Activist Niam Toure and Aminata Ouedraogo, known as Aminata Rachau, are also actively sought. Also on the list, several members of terrorist groups can be identified. The government has called on the public for information leading to the arrest of these individuals. Most of the names on the list were cited in September 2024 as part of a vast plot to destabilize the power in place. Burkina Faso, like Niger and Mali, has experienced coups in the past 4 years, shifting their policies away from long-standing associations such as ECOWAS, the regional economic bloc, and embracing Russian security support, particularly the Wagner Group, to combat a growing jihadist insurgency in all three countries. Burkinabe authorities in recent days have made several arrests, including journalists and activists, while blocking several major media outlets from reporting alleged human rights violations against civilians. However, experts believe that the strengthening of the fight against terrorism is in the right direction, as this will instill confidence of the population on the military government.
Abdullah Hassan filed that report. Meanwhile, society, organizations, movements, and security institutions have warned against Niger's withdrawal from the Multinational Joint Task Force, otherwise known as MNJTF. The Timbuktu Security Institute is one of those organizations alarmed by the development, describing it as fatal and catastrophic in the face of regional security threats. The institute reminded us that Niamey's decision is coming just days after it suffered a heavy terrorist attack that resulted in dozens of civilian casualties in the Tillaberi region. Baba Kanjai, a senior researcher at the Timbuktu Institute, speaks to WDR about the likely implications of Niger's withdrawal from the Joint Task Force.
It's very sad for us who are militant and supporters of collective security for West Africa and integration and development, because it is a significant setback for regional counterterrorism efforts, number one, because the MNJTF has been crucial in coordinating military operations against Boko Haram and the Islamic State in West Africa. Niger's withdrawal clearly, no doubt about it, weakens the collective response, as it has been a key contributor to border security and intelligence sharing within that group.
Baba Kanjai joins us with more analysis in the second half of the news. Staying in the Sahel, the Azawad Liberation Front, FLA, claims to have destroyed a Malian forces Akinze drone in northern Mali, with images to support this, but without independent confirmation. In a message published on the night of Monday to Tuesday on channels close to armed groups active in northern Mali, the Azawad Liberation Front claimed responsibility for the destruction of an Akinze combat drone, a latest generation device recently acquired by the Malian authorities. The claim is accompanied by several images showing debris from an unidentifiable aircraft spread across rocky ground topped by an ALF flag. However, the Malian authorities have not commented on this alleged incident. Francis Boniface brings us more details in this report.
These images were shared on social media, including through accounts affiliated with the Tuareg armed movement. At this stage, no independent confirmation has been provided regarding the authenticity of the images or the exact nature of the destroyed aircraft. Mali announced in December 2024 the acquisition of Akinji drones from Turkey as part of a significant strengthening of its aerial capabilities. The Akinji drones, manufactured by Baker, are considered high-performance aircraft with long-range strike capabilities and an endurance of more than 24 hours. This order was part of a series of deliveries of military equipment aimed at supporting the Malian armed forces in their fight against armed groups present in the northern and central regions of the country. Defense Minister General Sadio Kamara declared at the time that the drones would allow permanent coverage of national territory and the neutralization of threats in their sanctuaries. In their statement, the FLA fighters called Tinzawaten the graveyard of the famous Akinji drone and claimed to have already shot down almost all the Albatros and Sukhoi 25 fighter jets used by the Malian army. This is not the first time such claims have been made. In September 2023, an Su-25 crashed in the Gao region, while the Malian General Staff cited technical causes. Local armed groups also claimed responsibility for the attack.
Francis Boniface filed that report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
And to more stories, opposition leader of the Democratic Party of Côte d'Ivoire, BDCI, Tijan Cham, has called on the Ivorian head of state, Alassane Ouattara, to use his authority to allow opposition candidates whose names are not on the electoral list to run in the next presidential elections. With 7 months to go before the polls, Cham deplores the early signs of an imminent electoral crisis. In particular, the committee is concerned about the exclusion of major opposition figures such as Mr. Laurent Gbagbo, former President of the Republic, as well as Mr. Charles Blair Goudé, former Minister of Youth, and Mr. Guillaume Soro, former Minister of the National Assembly, all of whom have been disqualified from running for office due to legal problems. Augustin Coley has more details in this report filing by our Abidjan correspondent, Marcel Arsene Blair.
The former Credit Suisse executive argues for a peaceful democracy, saying it is essential to transcend the past conflicts that have divided the nation. He called for a gesture of greatness and generosity on the part of the Ivorian executive, insisting on the importance of governance based on forgiveness rather than repression in Africa, which are admired for his loftiness of mind, not for his prosperity to crush his opponents, he stressed. Continuing his remarks, Mr. Cham recalled that in any country, no situation is irreversible, referring to the rehabilitation of some PDC cadres, in particular Mrs. Valérie Yapour, a member of the political bureau who had previously been sanctioned. He urged the ruling rally of Hufoitists for democracy and peace to take a further step towards political detente in accordance with the principles of dialogue and national reconciliation advocated by the unifying president, the late Félix Houphouët-Boigny. As for his strategy to put an end to the 15 years of governance of the RHDP, Cham referred the question to the Ivorian people, saying that it is up to the citizens to judge the record of the power in place and to decide whether to grant an additional mandate. He revealed that for the past year, nearly 400 PDCI executives have been working on the development of a social project focused on peace, security, human development, health, education, the economy, and social justice, among others.
Our Abidjan correspondent Marcel Arsene Blair filed a report and voiced by Augustin Coley. Back here in Senegal, President Bashir Diomaye Faye's High Representative Aminata Touré says the country remains resolute in the planned abandonment of the CFA France. Speaking in an interview, the former Prime Minister said CFA France in any case will soon be history because it is no longer suited to the ambitions of the country's economy. According to her, the goal remains the establishment of a single West African currency, the ECO, adding that the reason ECOWAS is considering the issue. Speaking on the state of integrity and accountability, Madam Toure noted that the administration is continuing the revisions of contracts and the demand for transparency in past economic management. She also spoke about the role of Senegal in the international community.
Un rôle dynamique, d'abord avec nos frères de la sous-région. Je crois que c'est ça la priorité.
A dynamic role, first and foremost, with our brothers in the sub-region. I believe that this is the priority for the President of the Republic. He has dedicated this first visit precisely to the countries of the sub-region. This is extremely important. An active role in the SADC region. I do mean the ECOWAS region, which once again includes the brotherly countries of the AES. They really are our brotherly countries, and that's how we see it. Obviously, a more active role in Africa. I think that everything Senegal can do to bring the 54 countries together to facilitate the search for peaceful solutions, because unfortunately we will have conflicts in certain parts of the continent, and also to work to speak with one voice, which is extremely important, because also to be the spokesperson for oppressed peoples at international level.
Des peuples opprimés au niveau international.
That was President Bashir Diomaye Faye's High Representative Aminata Toure speaking there. Meanwhile, the Senegalese Navy announced that it intercepted a canoe carrying 92 people on Monday who were planning to migrate illegally in the Saloum Delta. The operation helped stop an attempted immigration at sea. According to a statement published on the Navy's X account, the operation took place in the morning and the 92 individuals were intercepted before reaching their destination. Now, let's bring you some stories from Nigeria first, as the embattled Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan on Tuesday received a rousing welcome from supporters and residents of the Hima community of Kogi State, despite the state government's ban on rallies and processions. As early as 8 a.m., our supporters from the 5 local government areas of Kogi Central Senatorial District that Akpoti-Uduaghan represents flooded the Hima community to welcome the People's Democratic Party (PDP) lawmaker. The suspended senator representing Kogi Central in the Senate, while addressing the crowd, alleged that the president of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, and the immediate governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, plotted to silence her in the state. The Kogi Central senator has made headlines in recent months and was some weeks suspended by the Senate for breaking its rules.
On the 14th of March at 10:30 p.m., mind you, 2 days before that, which was on the 12th, Akpabio had called Governor Dodo on the phone that he should commence my recall. But Governor Dodo told him it would be impossible. This was what Governor Dodo said on the 12th. Listen, he said on the 12th of March, Akpabio spoke to Governor Dodo to recall me. But he told him it would be impossible because the masses are with her, the people are with her. But Akpabio was not satisfied. He then sent for Yahaya Bello. And it was actually Senator Asukwo from Cross River that drove Yahaya Bello from Hilton Hotel. I was informed of everything. And when I got to know, hold on, the meetings was in 2 folds. He told him to commence my recall and that he was going to fund it. Of course, monies changed hands that night. I didn't make this public, but I wrote to the IG of police. And Akpabio told Yahaya Bello, I am saying, sorry about what I've said. He told him that he should make sure that killing me does not happen in Abuja. It should be done here. So it will seem as if it's the people that killed me here. I didn't make that public, but we did notify the security agencies of that.
A suspension came amid the sexual harassment allegations against Senator Akpabio. A process for a recall is also ongoing, but the embattled lawmaker claimed that travails are as a result of witch hunt. Meanwhile, the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, NIP, says that with Dangote Refinery and others coming on board, Nigerians should expect a crash in the price of premium motor spirit, better known as petrol. The product was sold for less than 200 naira per litre, which is about 20 cents. Before the removal, it currently sells for around 930 naira per litre, about $1, depending on the area. However, the Director General of NIPS, Ayo Omota, while the removal of fuel subsidy by President Bola Tinubu's administration has led to a hike in the cost of essential items, that better days are ahead for the country. President Tinubu's action ended a long-running arrangement to support fuel prices for the NIPS DG, though the removal was timely as Nigeria was on the verge of collapse.
We were at a point where the nation was going to collapse if the president did not take the steps he took. So for us at the National Institute, it was a very timely step that Mr. President took, and it has gone a long way in saving Nigeria. We were on the verge of collapse with subsidies. The subsidies we were paying were just totally unimaginable, and of course we were subsidizing fuel as far as Burkina Faso, as far as Sierra Leone in some instances, for the removal of fuel subsidy. Even though the Nigerian polity may feel it is harsh, that we needed some more time to study it, but I bet you we have researched this and we know that the subsidy was not going to be sustainable over a longer period. Other governments knew this, but they didn't have the courage because of this same effect that we are running from. Yes, it will be tough initially, but it is the best way to go. The National Institute does not exist to make people happy unnecessarily. What we try to do is to say, these are the pills you need to take if you want to achieve these particular goals. So the pills of the subsidy removal is a bitter one, no doubt. And we knew from the onset that there will be need for Nigerians to suddenly adjust.
Ms. Ayo Omota is a Director General of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies in Nigeria. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM Dakar. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Authorities in Burkina Faso declared 32 people wanted for terrorism-related offences. Leader of Ivorian opposition, Tijan Cham, urges President Ouattara to guarantee an inclusive election. Nigerian embattled Senator Natasha holds homecoming rally amidst ban on political programs. And still ahead in the news, Liberia CSO calls for urgent revision of 1986 Constitution to strengthen democracy and governance. We do have a guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Don't forget we are streaming live on wadr.org and we urge you to join live streaming on Facebook and YouTube. Now, ahead of the rainy season in Ghana, President John Mahama has issued a stern warning to persons who have built in waterways that their structures will be pulled. The president lamented how, so far, with a few instances of rainfalls, some parts of the country have experienced floods and how that situation cannot be allowed to continue, especially as the main rainy season approaches. Speaking during the commemoration of the Muslim Eid al-Fitr celebrations in Ghana on Monday, Mahama described the situation as a reckless disregard for planning regulations.
I must address a deeply troubling issue: the illegal construction of buildings in waterways, causing flooding and extensive destruction of property. As we know, the rains are about to start, and already we can see flooding because people have built and blocked the rivers, and so the rivers have nowhere to go but to back up. This reckless disregard for planning regulations and environmental safety is a major contributor to the devastating floods that continue to plague our communities. I'm aware of instances where private businesses, colluding with some chiefs, are turning water retention areas, Ramsaya sites, into built-up zones. Let me be clear, this must stop. Those structures will be pulled down. We will not allow a few selfish individuals to endanger the lives and livelihoods of countless others. The law will be enforced, and those who flout it will face the consequences.
Ghana's President John Mahama. In Liberia, the Executive Director of Namote Partners for Development, Eddie Jawolo, has called for a comprehensive review of Liberia's 1986 Constitution, arguing that it has not been adequately revised for over 40 years. He asserted that the outdated constitution has been detrimental to the rule of law, governance and democracy in the country. WDL's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker has a report.
The leading CSO boss stressed that such a process is essential to reinforce governance, uphold democratic principles, and ensure that the rule of law is both clearly defined and consistently applied. He questioned what has replaced the foundational 1847 independent area constitution, noting that the lack of necessary reforms has weakened legal provisions that protect civil liabilities, promote judiciary independence, and guide against the political will of governance structures.
The Liberia Constitution must reflect modern democratic standards and provide a stronger legal foundation for justice, accountability, and inclusive governance. The 1986 Constitution, which last amended by a military regime in 1986, no longer fully addressed the country involving political, social, and legal reality.
Diawolo identified several key areas within the governance structure that require urgent constitutional review. He highlighted the need for rule of law and judiciary reform, proposing the establishment of a special law court, including an electoral code and correctional court to ensure justice and accountability.
We also recommend an electoral reform process, strengthening electoral system to ensure transparency, credibility, and public confidence in the electoral system. Women political participation, institutionalizing legal measures to promote gender equality in leadership and governance.
Eli Diawolo also wants all stakeholders to engage in this vital process, advocating for a constitution that reflects the aspirations and rights of all Liberians. For Newslink on WADR, this is Abraham Parker from Monrovia.
Politics, analyses on major news, social matters, and all. This is The Guest.
Well, joining us on the guest segment is Babakan Jai, a senior fellow and researcher at the Timbuktu Institute. Jai, who had earlier described Niger's withdrawal from the Multinational Joint Task Force, or MNJTF, as a major setback in the regional security framework, explained some motivating factors behind such a decision. As a reminder, MNJTF is a security platform comprising Nigeria, Cameroon, Chad, Benin as an observer, and formerly Niger to fight against insurgency, trafficking of weapons, and increased border patrols. Our guest fears that the gains made could be reversed, further impacting human security.
My guess is this may stem from, first of all, the political tension that is continuing between Niger and ECOWAS since the 2023 military coup, right? And also, secondly, probably shifting alliances, as Niger depends security ties with Russia through the Wagner, they call now the Africa Corps, but it's the same. And therefore distancing itself from Western-backed initiatives. And probably you may have also domestic priorities, I think. Because recently you see attacks on a very important economic asset, which is this pipeline. Right. And they may have concern about now securing the pipeline. This shows clearly when we say peace is essential for development, it's lack of peace and security in the sub-region that undermines this major economic initiative, which is this gasoline pipeline that will allow Niger to develop its economic energy independence, right? Because of insecurity, you may be withdrawing your troops that was necessary for your national territory now to protect your economic assets, which are also what they call the security referent, because it's a target and it needs to be protected. They may be overstretched, but you weaken one front to strengthen one front, you leave a gap. I think those are maybe the justification. Now, in terms of the consequence, repercussions will be great and numerous and very dangerous because this withdrawal will likely exacerbate human security challenges. First of all, you may have increased terrorist activity, no doubt, because reduced coordination could allow Boko Haram and ISWAP to exploit gaps in border security and leading to more attacks on civilians. That's number one. As a result, you may have displacements and humanitarian crisis because escalating violence may force people to flee. It's obvious, and worsening the already severe refugee situation in the Lake Chad basin. You may have also economic strain because cross-border trade, critical for livelihoods, could decline due to heightened insecurity. And number 3, that will be the last, the weakening trust in regional cooperation, because other MNTJF members may question also the force and effectiveness and potentially leading to further fragmentation. Those are the key human security challenges I'd see directly from this withdrawal.
Are we likely to see a shift in terrorism in the region, given that Niger is a critical and key player of the MNGTF and it's withdrawing its membership, meaning pulling away its contributions in terms of material, logistics, and human support?
Very much so, in my view. This may lead to, first of all, rebalancing of terrorist groups, because Boko Haram and ISWAP could redirect attacks towards Niger itself, because you have a loophole. Because if Niger reduces counterterrorism pressure while exploiting also weaker points in Cameroon and Niger, because when Niger leaves, it will leave a gap for weakness and vulnerability for Cameroon and Niger. And therefore, you may have an expansion of other jihadist groups. If the MNJTF weakens, groups like Junim and Al-Qaeda affiliate in the Sahel could also expand into the Lake Chad, because they opportunistic groups who use vulnerabilities of the stronger force. Then that will clearly open a gap for vulnerability. And then you may also have increased reliance on external actors, because if Niger may depend on Russian mercenaries and Wagner, and MNTJF members turn to Western support, that would be leading also competing security frameworks. You see, it will be very risky now. And Africa is a target of other powers also because of the resources that we have. I think regional bodies like AU should encourage Niger to reconsider or at least maintain intelligence sharing with the group.
Baba Kanjai is a senior fellow and researcher at the Timbuktu Institute. Here is Sport News with Sankule Janko.
Hello there, warm welcome and thank you for joining us. A stunning early free kick from Ibrahim Sow handed Senegal a 1-0 victory over Gambia in their opening Group C clash at Dakar on the 17th Africa Cup of Nations on Tuesday afternoon. Played at Stade Ben Ahmed in Jadida, Senegal got off to a dream start when Sow called in a superb right-footed strike into the top corner from a free kick in just 7 minutes. It proved to be the only goal in a tense encounter between the West African neighbors. The tightly contested affair saw Gambia respond with spells of possession and pressure, particularly in the second half. But Senegal remained resolute and defended their lead to the end. The victory put Senegal top of the table with 3 points, with Tunisia taking on Somalia in the group's other game on Tuesday evening. Gambia, meanwhile, will need to bounce back quickly when they face Somalia in their next group match on Friday, while Senegal take on Tunisia. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
And we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mam Kudu, Maudo Juf, and Sheikh Njai for the technical support. Do connect with us on all of our social media platforms: X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, RWDL News, and Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. I am Imo Edet. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, New Me FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio,